What's up, Sneeples? We got the Shadow Brute Levia to go over in this video. Lot to talk about, a lot of new changes, and I think out of all the heroes, she has gotten the Azalea treatment where she has gone from F tier to a much more playable tier. But what tier is that? Let's go find out. Let's talk some Levia cards. Okay, first off, we're starting off with Hellhammer. Our spoiler card, very happy to see that it is getting some love. However, I don't know if this card is quite there. I do oftentimes like that this card is a safety valve, and therefore, like, there is probably some bias, but I actually do like this card even over Claws. I think it really depends on your build, but I think if you're just trying to do turbo blood depth, this might be the way. I find that you're not swinging with your weapons quite often. And so because if that's the case, having this safety valve might be the way to do it. That's where I'm at with Hellhammer. I think it will depend on the deck you play with. I do think Claws can help with a Blood Rush Bellow turn. That's the obvious, point for Claws. But Hellhammer keeping you, alive and not taking a massive amount of blood depth when you're not ready to yet, I think is pretty big. Okay. Next up, Spoiled Skull. This is only Levia's basically headpiece right now until we get a new Shadow Brute. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not big into it. It has a brute-like mechanic where you're picking a card at random, or you're picking a card at random from 3 cards that you choose, and then you can play it that turn. But the thing is, if you're playing Levia, then you're trying to get to the point where you can become Plasma Effect and be able to play card from your banish zone. So you don't need this card if that's the case. On top of that, it's just it itself does have blood depth, so I guess in a way you can add to that blood depth, but it has AB1, and right now Brute has access to a headpiece that has AB2. So I think at this point I'd rather go with that than Spoiled Skull, and that's just where I'm at. So I'm not very high on Spoiled Skull. I don't think I'm going to play any Levia build as of now. Next up, Diabolic Offering. This card is the most interesting. Is it a blue for 6, or it's a blue 6 power? Kinda. I think I have blocked for 6 with this card before, and it's not that hard. There is plenty of cards that help with that. I find playing an Art of War is pretty damn good with this card, whether you're attacking or defending. So I'm all about that. If I just want to play an Art of War and defend with this card and draw 2 cards, cool, easy. I can do that and then have a decent turn, coming back. Blocking for 6 with 1 card is that's a lot of power. So I do like that. And then if we're talking offensively, this is a 1 for 6 in most cases when it can be. However, when it can't be, that's when this card is really bad and it feels bad. So I don't know if I do a 3 of. I might just do a 1, maybe 2. It's a bit situational of a card, but it is a blue pitch that has flexibility, that has playability. So I do like it for that. That's why I think you do need to play it no matter what type of Levia build you have. It's just a matter of how much do you want to play it. Okay, next up is Shaden Death Hydra. One of the cool cards that Levia got. Levia has Hellhammer and the Shaden Death Hydra, so I like that. 6 for 13 is pretty ridiculous. However, it does have the Hexagore effect where you are doing 13 minus the amount of blood depth you have in your banish zone. So this card will probably deal some damage to you almost every time you play it. And it's just a matter of how much damage is worth it. I think where I'm at is 3 damage I'm comfortable with. 4 I'm a little iffy on. And then obviously 2 or 1 or even 0 damage is just fine. I'm totally cool with. So I think it's cost 6 plus a little bit of life, but it is 13 damage. And that's nothing to blink an eye at. That is something to really behold. So I like this card. It's top of that. It's a yellow pitch that has a 6 power, so or a 6 or higher power. So in that regard, it's great too. I think this card is just an auto include. Even if you're a Levia redeem type deck where you're going just for the redeem route, I think you play this card anyways, and you, at the very least, it's a good pitch or block or a great discard ability. So I like that card. Next up, another card that I think is really good is Slithering Shadowpede. This is a 1 for 6. This is a 1 for 6 at its floor. And a 1 for 6 at its floor is very good. Yes, it does not have a block, and that's where it kind of loses some points, right? But it does have the ability that if it is banished from hand this turn, you can play it. So if you know, there's tons of cards out that got printed that banishes a random card from hand. If it happens to be this Slithering Shadowpede, then you can just basically, it's basically like the whole Dread Screamer Graveling Growl combo. Now it's Ram Raider Slithering Shadowpede combo. Yeah, we'll get to Ram Raider here in a bit, but Shadowpede has a lot of versatility. It's great with Art of War too. It's just something you can like instantly play that you banish from Art of War. A really, really cool card. This card I'm all about. I like this card a lot. All right, next up, Expendable Limbs. I'm high on this card personally. I think it's a great blue pitch. I think it's Levia's like reckless swing basically. This is another one that can, you know, possibly get rid of or, you know, put a Slithering Shadowpede in banish zone so you can play it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, any card that you banish, as long as it has 6 or more power, and that's kind of the point that we do with this deck. Is we ensure that there's 6 more power. So it's almost better than Reckless Swing, but Reckless Swing does have free damage, right? But this one does have some, like, I don't know, it's just, I like it. It has a lot of playability, I think. All right, next up, Blood Dripping Frenzy. This is Blood Rush Bellow, you know, number 2. This I don't think is actually better than Blood Rush Bellow. I think Blood Rush Bellow is better than this card, and I think because of this card, you are seeing builds kind of ditch the claws or not be as effective with the claws, because you will probably play both Blood Rush Bellow and Blood Dripping Frenzy, but Blood Dripping Frenzy doesn't help claws out. It does help everything else though. It does buff claws too, I should say that, but just won't give the go again. I think this card has to be played when you have an arsenal or when it's in the arsenal. And the reason is because you actually go down a card with this card instead of just like stay at even, like something like you would with Blood Rush Bellow. You stay even, where this card you're going down a card. So I think you want to try to have an arsenal as well so that you can maximize the amount of damage you can do in one turn. This card would also probably require a rolling for the Scab Skin Leathers so you can get 2 action points if you don't draw anything with Go Again. Because you're going to want to attack with at least 2 things on a turn like this. Speaking of Go Again, we get Ram Raider. This is a alternate version of Dread Screamer, and so therefore I think it should be played in the deck. It's kind of like Breakneck Battery. Ram Raider, 2 for 6, so you just play the reds, but like if you banish random card, if it's a 6 more power, you get Go Again. So that's really what you want to do, is you get the Ram Raider and coming in with the Go Again. This is where Hexagore might be a great weapon. If you already have a ton of blood depth, then, you know, for 4 resources you can go 6/6, so 4 for 12 is pretty good. Obviously, if you have, you know, if you pitch a blue, then you can go 3 for 12 with Slithering Shadowpede, or Graveling Growl. Graveling Growl would work as well. So I really like Ram Raider. I think this is a great card and is a definite include in all Levia builds. Okay, next up, Wall Breaker. This is another 2 for 6, but this one has the overpower mechanic. Personally, I'm not very high on this card. I think it's just okay. However, I have a friend who is a Levia diehard, and he has been testing, and he says this is one of the way that you finish the game as Plasma Fett. You basically will do Unworldly Bellow into Wall Breaker to just finish the game. And so maybe in that regards, it is a good card, but it hasn't done that for me. And so me personally, I am not high on this card. By the way, for like the Ram Raider, I would maybe play maybe yellow and blue. That's a big maybe. Definitely the red. For Wall Breaker, I would only play the red if I was to play this card. And like I said, I'm not huge on it. Shade and Scream, I don't think I'd play this card in any color. A 0 for 5, but it's also a random banish. I'm just not about it. Personally, I don't think you need pumps with Levia. I think Levia already comes pretty hard. So I don't think you need to do extra to pump her up. I think you just try to get as many go again attacks as possible to come in with multiple attacks. I don't think you need to just come in with one big attack. She's already big. She already does big attacks. Alright, Battlefield Breaker. This is a 3 for 7, which means I really like the yellow because the yellow is a 2 for 6, so it's a yellow pitch that I can have a 6 power with, so that's why I like that. But it also gets a little bit of a bump if you banish a card this turn. It doesn't banish anything in itself, so on its like floor, it's a 3 for 7, but that's kind of okay. It could be a 3 for 8, and it does have blood depth, so it does account for that. So, you know, I know some Levia players aren't very big on this card, and I'm not saying you have to play it, but I particularly like the yellow. So I generally like to run 3 yellows just because of the good pitch, and it's not a bad card. It does cost 3. I think that's his, biggest, downfall, but past that is pretty good. Next up, Shade Swing, another one that's a red 7, so the yellow's a 6. So you know I like this card. This one banishes a card, so this one, plays into your gameplay, allows you to, turn off your blood depth if need be, and build up blood depth in your banish zone. So this card does everything you kind of want to do as a Levia player. So I personally really like this card. I know it's not an actual 1 for 6. It's like a what is that? Savage Swing from Brute. It's like 1 for 6 with a random banish. But it's still 1. I don't know. It could still be good. Next up, we have Tribute to Demolition. Now this card is just kind of okay. It's a 2 for 8 potentially. But it's a 2 for 8 with an additional cost, and that cost is mandatory. So I don't know. It's really not. I'm not feeling it, to be honest. It could be a 2 for 8, which that is great value, but I'm just not feeling it. It would be a 2 for 8 plus a random banish, so it's not even that great of value. Next up is the same deal. It's a 3 for 7. The yellow's a 3 for 6, so maybe it could be a 3 for 8. With an additional banish, I don't know. I do like the yellows, and you know why, but that's about it. I don't think I'm super huge on any of the tributes, to be honest. I would maybe play the yellow tribute Legions of the Doom. As far as Shade and Swing, I'm really only going to be playing the yellow and red. I would not be playing the blue. And yeah, that is about it. So let's talk Levia real quick. Where is she? What can we expect out of her? I think out of all the new heroes, she has the most room to grow. I do think that there is still some solving need to be done and playtesting even on my end to really kind of figure out the deck build for it. But what I could see is her being in the meta. And it might be just like Azalea, where she makes a huge splash in the beginning and then kind of fades out towards the end. I could definitely see that. I don't think she's like Starvel level, where she's an instant success and will stay on top throughout the whole thing. I'm not seeing that yet. I hope that becomes a thing because, Levia guys have been waiting in the shadows forever for it. But I don't foresee that coming, so I think she's going to be a solid B, and I think she's actually going to have the highest rating out of all of the Monarch heroes, including Whip and Set. So I think this deck is going to be a lot of fun to play, and it's going to give you some success. But I don't know if you take it to Worlds or like a Nationals. But anyways, we'll talk about some of the other Shadow heroes in the next video. So, stick with us then. But till then, keep on bapping.